He opened his eyes and saw nothing but sand. No road, no car, no people, just an endless desert. He didn't know how he got there. He didn't know who had left him. And he had no food, no water, and no way out. The only thing he knew, if the sun didn't kill him, the night would bet. Here's what makes this story absolutely insane. Before we dive into this mystery that stumped investigators for years, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Because what happened to Ricky Megee in the Australian Outback will leave you with more questions than answers. So yeah, January 2006, middle of the Australian summer, a 35-year-old guy named Ricky Megee wakes up face down in red dirt, and he has absolutely no clue how he got there. Now here's the thing, this isn't just any desert. This is the Tanami Desert in Western Australia, one of the most remote and deadly places on Earth. We're talking about an area so vast and barren that search and rescue teams regularly lose aircraft trying to find missing people. But Ricky's first thought isn't about the desert. It's about the taste in his mouth. Bitter, chemical, like he'd been drugged. And that's when he notices something weird. His shoes are gone. Not lost, not fallen off, completely removed. Someone had taken the time to unlace his boots and take them off his feet. You know what else? There are drag marks in the sand, leading away from where he's lying. Long, deep grooves, like something heavy had been pulled across the desert floor. The missing pieces. Alright, so let's back up. The last thing Ricky remembers is driving his Mitsubishi Triton Ute north from Perth. He was heading to Port Hedland for work, a routine drive he'd made dozens of times before. He remembers stopping at a roadhouse somewhere near Fitzroy Crossing. He remembers having a drink, talking to some locals, and then, nothing. Complete blackout until he wakes up in hell. Now here's where it gets really strange. His car, never found. His wallet, his phone, his work tools, everything he was traveling with, vanished. The only things left on him were his clothes and a watch that had stopped working. But wait, there's more. When investigators finally got involved, they discovered something that makes no sense. The nearest road to where Ricky was found, 12 kilometers away. That's about 7.5 miles of rough, rocky terrain. No way someone carries an unconscious man that far into the desert by accident. The survival begins. Okay, so Ricky's awake, he's confused, and he's starting to realize just how screwed he is. The temperature's already climbing toward 115 degrees Fahrenheit, and he's got no water. But here's the thing about Ricky. He grew up in the bush. His dad was a prospector, so he knew a few tricks about staying alive in places that want to kill you. First thing he does, he starts looking for shade. Finds a small overhang of rock, and crawls underneath it. Smart move, because in that heat, direct sunlight will literally cook you from the inside out. Next, he starts rationing his saliva. Sounds gross, but when you're dying of thirst, every drop of moisture in your body becomes precious. And then he does something that probably saved his life. He starts walking at night and hiding during the day, following animal tracks, looking for any sign of water or civilization. The bizarre clues now, while Ricky's trying not to die, something else weird is happening. Remember those drag marks? They led to tire tracks. Multiple vehicles, all heading back toward the main road. And here's what really gets me. Whoever left Ricky there knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't just dump him randomly. They took him to a spot that was far enough from civilization to be deadly, but close enough to animal trails that he might, if he was incredibly lucky, find water. It's like they wanted him to have a chance, but only barely. The investigators also found something else. Footprints. At least 3 different sets, all around the area where Ricky was left. This wasn't a solo operation. Fine, but here's the twist. One of those sets of footprints. They matched work boots. The same brand and size that Ricky had been wearing. Someone had taken his shoes and walked around in them before leaving. The water hunt. So Ricky's been walking for 3 days now, following a faint animal trail. He's hallucinating from dehydration. His lips are cracked and bleeding, and his tongue is starting to swell. That's when he smells it. Water. Not sees it, smells it. When you're that dehydrated, your body becomes incredibly sensitive to moisture. He follows his nose and finds a tiny seep in some rocks. Barely a trickle, but it's enough. He manages to collect maybe half a cup of muddy water in his cupped hands. And you know what? It tastes like heaven. This little seep becomes his base camp. He spends his days hiding from the sun and his nights walking in expanding circles, looking for food or any sign of people. And that's when he discovers he's not alone in this desert. The unexpected neighbors, believe it or not, Ricky starts encountering other living things. Wild goats, mostly. And here's where his bush knowledge really kicks in. He figures out how to catch and eat grasshoppers. Sounds disgusting, but protein is protein when you're starving. He also learns to eat certain types of bark and roots that the goats were feeding on. But the weirdest part, he starts finding human artifacts. Old campfires, rusted cans, even some Aboriginal rock paintings. This area isn't as empty as it first appeared. And that makes the whole situation even stranger. If people had been in this area before, if there were signs of human activity, why dump someone here to die? Unless, of course, they knew about these resources. Unless they knew Ricky might actually survive. The psychological torture. Now here's the thing that really messes with your head about this case. As Ricky's surviving day after day, living off bugs and muddy water, he starts remembering fragments from that night. He remembers someone saying, "This'll teach him." He remembers being carried by multiple people. He remembers the sound of vehicles starting up and driving away, but he can't remember faces. He can't remember exactly what led to this. It's like someone selectively erased parts of his memory, and that's when the paranoia kicks in. Is this about money? Did he see something he wasn't supposed to see? Was this some kind of twisted punishment? The not knowing, that psychological torture, it's almost worse than the physical suffering. The rescue, so it's been 71 days. That's over 2 months of living like a caveman, in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Ricky's lost about 120 pounds. He's basically a skeleton wrapped in sunburned skin. That's when a group of Aboriginal trackers finds him. And get this, they almost walked right past him. He was so thin and dirty that he looked like just another piece of desert debris. It was only when he moved and croaked out help that they realized he was human. The trackers later said they'd never seen anything like it. A white man who'd learned to live like the old people, surviving off the land, using traditional methods. But here's what's really wild. When they found him, he was walking, still moving, still trying to find his way home. The investigation begins. So the cops show up, and they immediately know something's wrong. This isn't just a case of someone getting lost. The location, the missing shoes, the drug-like symptoms, it all points to foul play. They interview Ricky extensively, but his memory is still fragmented. He remembers bits and pieces, but nothing concrete enough to identify suspects or locations. The search for his vehicle becomes a massive operation. Helicopters, ground teams, even satellite imagery. But the Mitsubishi Triton, gone, like it never existed. And then they make a discovery that changes everything. The Roadhouse connection. Remember that Roadhouse where Ricky had his last drink? Investigators track down the staff and other patrons from that night, and that's when they hear about the argument. Turns out, Ricky had gotten into a heated discussion with some locals about mining rights and Aboriginal land. It wasn't violent, but it was intense. People remembered it. Now here's where it gets interesting. 3 of the men from that argument. They all owned 4-wheel drive vehicles. They all had experience in the Outback, and they all had connections to the area where Ricky was found. But when police interview them, they all have alibis. They all claim they left the Roadhouse right after the argument and went their separate ways. Except for one small problem. The smoking gun that wasn't one of the men's vehicles showed signs of recent Outback travel. Red dust, specific to the Tanami Desert, embedded in the tire treads. Scratches consistent with off-road driving through rocky terrain. The police think they've got their break. But then the man produces receipts. Fuel stops, accommodation, even photos from a camping trip he took the following weekend. All documented, all legitimate. So either this guy is incredibly smart and planned an elaborate cover story, or he's telling the truth. And that's when the investigation hits a wall. The theory, okay, so here's what investigators think happened. Based on the evidence and Ricky's fragmented memories. After the argument at the Roadhouse, someone, probably more than one person, decided to teach Ricky a lesson. Maybe they drugged his drink. Maybe they followed him and forced him off the road. Either way, they took him to a remote location in the desert, removed his shoes to make survival harder, and left him there, assuming he'd die within a few days. But they made one crucial mistake. They underestimated Ricky's knowledge of bush survival. What was supposed to be a death sentence became an incredible survival story. The problem is, proving any of this in court. Nearly impossible. No witnesses, no physical evidence linking specific individuals to the crime, and a victim whose memory was chemically compromised. The aftermath, so Ricky survives, recovers, and tries to rebuild his life. But the psychological scars run deep. He develops severe anxiety about traveling alone. He can't sleep without checking locks multiple times. The paranoia from those 71 days in the desert never fully goes away, and his car, still missing. Somewhere in the vastness of Western Australia, there's a Mitsubishi Triton that holds the key to solving this mystery. The case officially remains unsolved. The statute of limitations for attempted murder in Australia. There isn't one. So technically, this investigation could be reopened tomorrow, if new evidence surfaces. But here's the thing. Ricky doesn't want it reopened. Ricky's truth, when asked directly about what he thinks happened, Ricky's answer is both simple and terrifying. He believes someone tried to kill him. Not in a moment of passion, but as a calculated act. They chose the location carefully. They removed his shoes deliberately, and they left him there fully expecting him to die. But he also believes they knew he had survival skills. They wanted him to suffer, not just die quickly. It wasn't random, he says. Someone wanted me gone, but they wanted me to know I was dying. That's not justice-seeking talking. That's survivor's intuition. The lasting mystery. So what really happened to Ricky Megee? The truth is, we may never know for certain. But here's what we do know. Someone with detailed knowledge of the Australian Outback. Someone with the means and motivation to transport an unconscious man deep into the desert, committed what amounts to attempted murder. They used the desert as a weapon, counting on the heat and isolation to finish what they started. The only reason they failed, they picked the wrong victim. The final question. Ricky Megee survived 71 days, in one of the world's most hostile environments. He learned to live off insects and muddy water. He endured temperatures that would kill most people in hours. But the real question isn't how he survived. It's why someone wanted him dead. And until that Mitsubishi Triton surfaces, until someone comes forward with information, until the desert gives up its secrets, that question will haunt everyone who hears this story. Because somewhere out there, the people who did this are living their lives, thinking they got away with the perfect crime. They almost did. But Ricky Megee didn't die in that desert. And his story, his survival, it's a reminder that sometimes the human spirit is stronger than the worst intentions. If this story blew your mind like it did mine, hit that subscribe button, and let me know in the comments. What do you think really happened to Ricky? Was this attempted murder, or something even darker? And if you want more incredible survival stories and unsolved mysteries, check out our playlist. Because the truth is often stranger than fiction. And sometimes, just sometimes, the good guys actually win. Thanks for watching, and remember, the desert keeps its secrets, but survivors tell their stories.